We are at the JP Morgan's 10th annual conference, and we are being joined by Amyn Pirani, who handles the aviation as well as the auto sector. And Amir, firstly, great to have you on ET Now. Thank you so much for your time. But the excitement is all about autos with that GST reset now being announced. And Amir, we also have the numbers on the day one booking. That's been a stellar number. Yeah. But the question that is in the minds of everybody is right now, is this just the excitement coming in after a pause everybody has been waiting for to get their vehicles, book them and take deliveries, or it's more of a structural story now?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. So as far as the GST cuts are concerned, our view at JP Morgan is that it is definitely a structural improvement in affordability. The main problem for automotive demand was that affordability was a challenge. Post-COVID, we had seen regulatory cost push from emission norms, safety norms, COVID-related disruptions, and cost inflation, which was impacting affordability. So just to give you some numbers, between fiscal 19, which is the pre-COVID peak, and fiscal 25, passenger vehicle volumes as a whole have grown by around 28 to 30%. But if you separate out the more than 10 lakh and the less than 10 lakh category, and less than 10 lakh is where the first time buyer mainly comes in, that category actually hasn't grown in 6 years. So all the growth was driven by the more than 10 lakh category. So what was the problem there? There was a challenge of initially finance availability, then income growth not being there, and price hikes happening. Now if you see with this GST cut, in addition to whatever has already happened in the beginning of the year, the income tax cuts as well as the interest rate cuts, this creates improved affordability. And hopefully if this continues, for a few more quarters, we will see a gradual improvement in the growth expectations as we go into next year. Obviously, festive period is important, and festive period always brings in more excitement and sentiment from the customers. It's too early to judge how great the festive season will be because there have been a lot of disruptions before that. But I think we should see this more as a gradual increase in the growth expectations for automotive demand and discretionary demand, rather than just about these next 1.5 to 2 months.
That's right. If you look at the volume growth, you're going to see a decent volume growth coming in the second half of the year compared to the first half, especially in the affordability segment.
Absolutely. So obviously, OEMs have talked about this, but if you look at what we have done, so in passenger vehicles, before all of this happened, we were expecting low single-digit volume growth for the full year, with a potentially negative volume growth for the first-time buyer categories. Now what we are expecting on a full-year basis, because the first half is almost done, is that we could grow at, say, mid-single digits, and then next year grow at like 8 to 10%. And within that, the affordable segment or the first-time buyer segment, which was stuck at 0 to -2, should also start participating in the growth by growing at high single digits and potentially, in a positive scenario, close to double digits as well.
And how does the entire game plan of EV come into play in this as well? Because not just in the passenger vehicle, but in the two-wheeler segment as well, you have that affordability coming in.
Yeah. So I think, EV again is a longer-term structural story. If we look at different segments, in the larger passenger vehicle segment, I think EV still is a great value proposition. The GST is 5% vis-a-vis 40% for the bigger cars, even though it has come down. In the lower end segment, yes, 5 versus 28 versus 5 versus 18. I would see this more as a growth driver for ICE rather than a negative for EV. Obviously, when you look at numerator, denominator, one can say that EV penetration is not growing, but if it is happening because ICE has also started to grow, then, I don't think we should think of it as a negative for EV, because at the end of the day, passenger vehicle penetration in India is nothing. It's like 45 cars per 1,000. So there is huge scope for both EV and ICE to grow, with EV continuing to improve penetration as time goes by. In two-wheelers also, increasingly what we are hearing from the ground is that EVs are developing their own value proposition.
Okay.
One aspect is low cost of ownership, obviously, but with most companies, the EVs are also coming with additional software features which are actually difficult to provide on ICE. So they are having their own market. They will continue to grow, and definitely ICE, and again ICE 100 to 125 cc ICE gets a boost because of this GST cut. In fact, in two-wheelers, every category right up to 350 cc gets a significant boost of demand.
Indeed. But Amir, to the point that you were making, that it will drive the first-time buyers as well, there's a lot of excitement indeed. But the other trend, within the passenger vehicle space, we were seeing that the small car segment wasn't doing good at all. It was only the SUVs that was driving. But today in this GST reset, is the small car segment that is expected to be the biggest beneficiary. Do you see a bit of a shift in terms of the consumer preferences now? Have you made any changes in the small car category growth vis-a-vis you have done the passenger vehicle adjustments? Because the reason I ask this, because it's not just the GST part that will help fuel the demand. There are a lot many tax cuts and tax initiatives that will eventually lead to more income in the hands of people.
No, absolutely. So say 10% growth for next year, the way we are thinking about. The mid to high-end SUVs were anyways growing at low to mid-teens, and I think that continues with some improvement because that tax rate has also come down between 45 to 48% earlier, coming down to 40%. But the less than 10 lakh, which is made up a combination of small cars, but even small SUVs, there are a lot of micro SUVs or small SUVs which fall below 10 lakh. That category as a whole, which was just about 0%, the delta change will be quite high there. So from 0 to -2, that category as a whole can go up to 7-8% or even higher growth. So instead of just one category taking the load of growth, now the growth will be, the lower end will also participate in the growth. I don't think we should think of it as a preference change. I would think of it as the upgradation trend continuing because anybody who owns a vehicle would want to upgrade. But it was the lost sales, which is basically first-time buyers who couldn't come into the market in the last 5 years, coming in, and they're driving the lower end, whereas the upgrade-driven buyers continuing to drive the higher end.
So a combination of a tax cut, the rate cut and GST cut, and then the consumer looks at the EMI that he has to pay for 7 years, and is it coming into that savings which he's getting through these three?
Absolutely.
And so if that is the case, do you think that consumption will be triggered in this format? Because there is also a confidence which is there with respect to in the urban markets where the consumption has been very slow to pick up. Is that going to come back?
I think in autos definitely, because while the income tax cuts and the rate cuts are more broad-based and customer can use that money for anything, but GST cuts are product-specific. So, it's only available if you buy a car. So I think if you want to take benefit of that price cut, you end up using that, for buying a car or a two-wheeler. Absolutely. I think the first-time buyer, which has been missing, a lot of companies have also talked about the first-time buyer going into the used car market, which category has been growing quite fast. I think a lot of that first-time buyer can now think of a new car as an affordable price point now. And definitely that will drive new car demand.
We saw a used car player, car trade, tweeting, the founder tweeting saying that the kind of, inquiries and the sales that have happened on day one of Navratri, he hasn't seen in many years actually. So is used car will be the entry point for them, or the new car would be the entry point for them?
So see, so 2 points here. First of all, used car has been growing faster than new car for a while now. So, and this is based on published data points, which we have also put out in our earlier notes. I think the used car market used to be 1.2x of the new car market. I think in the last few years, it has become 1.5x of the new car market. this is also, a function of a healthy growing market, because globally, used car is even larger than new car. Because as you get a higher population of vehicles on the road, you have all kinds of buyers, and some of them want to upgrade through buying a used car, which is available at a lower price. But I think, without going into specific comments, I think a lot of the used car websites are also working as classifieds for new car inquiry as well. So we need to look at, that, in context. But I think a GST cut and the whole communication around it from companies also definitely leads to an improvement in sentiment, because people are suddenly now focusing and thinking about, okay, now maybe if I was going to take a decision 6 to 9 months down the line, maybe because of all these things happening together, I can take that decision today and end up, booking or buying a vehicle for myself.
No, indeed, because there's a lot of excitement around as well when you feel that, yes, the GSTs and the cars are going to be cheaper, that help decision. But to the point of the EVs that you were making, there are two aspects to the lens that I see. One is the passenger vehicle side, wherein the growth has been slow, like you highlighted. The other one is two-wheelers. Let's start with the passenger vehicle. We have seen companies doing very well. Some of the leaders are sticking to that position of the market leadership, though the competition is kicking in. But am I off late? The foreign companies have also started thinking and entering into India. How do you see this disrupting the Indian ecosystem, if at all? And how long do you believe that the penetration might take time to inch from these levels? Because I believe that it's very minuscule at this point in time.
Yeah. So you're right, penetration is quite low. So as of last financial year, we were at around 2 to 2.5% penetration in PVs. This year, we've actually gone, like on a YTD basis, we are already at 4.5 to 5%. And I think the reason we believe why penetration was low is because of the usual worries that people have around EVs, but there was lack of options. One or two players alone cannot drive industry penetration. So we have seen in the last 6 to 9 months many new exciting models coming in, and everybody has lined up more models. Everybody has announced 2-3 new models per company over the next few years. So as more and more models come in, as people have more choices across price points, across body types, across sizes, definitely there is going to be an increase in penetration. In fact, we have put out that we believe that by fiscal year 30, EV penetration in passenger vehicles can hit 12%. And the only thing which is holding it back is new models coming in. We know that a lot of people talk about charging infrastructure. I think that is a problem once you need to go beyond 12 to 15% penetration, because initially the EVs will be bought by people who are buying their second or third vehicle. And this is a well, publicized number by all OEMs that in India, 40 to 45% are first-time buyers, 25% are upgrade buyers, and around 30% are people who are buying the second or third car in the family. And for them, EV is a very attractive proposition because it comes with the latest features. Most people living in the larger cities have access to charging either at their apartment complex or in the office or at a mall or somewhere else. Most of them are not doing 300 kilometers in a day, right? So they need to charge their vehicle maybe twice a week. So it's a very attractive value proposition. So to penetrate in that 30% is not going to take time. When you need to penetrate into those people for whom the car is their only source of transportation, that is when you need highway infrastructure, because if tomorrow if they want to do, say, Mumbai to Nashik, they need to know whether they will have charging infra on the road or not. So I think 12%, 13% penetration with the plans that we know is something which is very much possible by fiscal 30.